Hey everyone, Molton here. Welcome back to the series. So we got another game here with the white pieces. This time we're going to go for something I haven't really played on this channel before, and that's going to be a G3 Vienna. This is a pretty good system for those of you who want to play similar to a King's Indian type of position, because the plans are going to be very similar, where we develop our pieces and then we're going to go for some sort of an F4 push very soon. The fact that he's put his bishop on e7 also gives him a pretty passive position compared to having the bishop on c5. So yeah, normally here I just go straight for f4, but because there's a bishop on h5, I probably want to unpin myself first. So I'll play the move pawn to g4 and then follow through with the move pawn to f4. And if I'm allowed, then I put the pawn on f5 as well, of course. In this position, we'll capture back with the knight because the bishop will get hit. And as you can see, it's a fairly simple system for white. We're just developing and then going straight for this f4 advance. Okay, so this moves weakens the d5 square quite a bit, so I'm thinking of putting a knight on d5 later on. Also, once we move our knight, we probably can kick this knight away with the move pawn to c3. So definitely knight to d5 is a move. I want to improve my position first. So let's start with queen to d2. It just prevents him from trading off this bishop with bishop g5 or anything like that. Now, we can take this bishop on g6. I don't really want to though. I think this bishop here is better. If I can go for the dark squared bishop, that would be ideal, but perhaps we can't do that in this position. So if we go knight to d5, black will capture, we capture back with the knight, and then he has this move bishop to g5, because since his knight is on e6 already, he can play this bishop outside the pawn chain, and this bishop is not that great for him, so he's actually happy to trade it off. And also it would weaken a lot of the dark squares in my position if I allowed that to happen. So at the same time, I'm not sure I really want to take this bishop, because if I take the bishop, then he'll just capture back, and this bishop is not the best piece in this pawn structure at the moment. I almost feel like the knight is better than the bishop. So what I might do is I might just wait instead and try to find a useful waiting move. I don't want to take this knight, of course, because black just recaptures back. What else? We can take and play g5, but this doesn't look so great because the knight hops into this h5 square. There's taking the knight, pawn takes, and then e5. Pawn takes, taking here, but this doesn't look so great either, because sort of opening up the position a bit too much and allowing black a lot of counterplay with moves like rook to b8. So I might just sit here and wait. Just play rook f2, perhaps double rooks on the f file. Yeah, just double rooks for now and see what black does. Okay, black goes for this pawn to b5, makes a lot of sense. So again, we can go knight to d5, but same issue. We trade off, and then black will play the move bishop to g5 at some point. So how do we start a kingside attack here is a question. Or do we just wait for now? We could just wait, play a move such as b3. I might just wait. Play b3, just see what black does first. Yeah, so sometimes if you're not sure what to do, you can just play a useful waiting move, because your opponent sometimes can create weaknesses for you. Especially here, I'm not sure if b4 is a move black wants to play, because it does weaken the light squares quite a bit. In saying that, it does go for the dark squares as well, so black does get something for it. Just going to maneuver my knight back to e2. I could go to d5, but again, I don't want to allow this trade, and then the bishop comes out to g5. So he has a lot of these dark squared weaknesses that he can really go for here. It's probably the main issue with white's position. So we need to sort of cover these squares. So we can capture the knight. Pawn takes. And then g5, g4, g5. This would prevent him from bringing this bishop out. But it does sort of relieve the pressure as well on his central squares, like d5 is no longer a problem if we do that. Can I play knight g3? Knight g3, bishop h4. Can I sack a piece? Possibly, but it looks a bit unsound to me. So maybe we have to take the knight here. Pawn takes. Can we play knight f4? Then he drops the bishop back to f7. So yeah, I mean, his position is actually not that bad. And he does have all these squares coming up. We could play knight g3 and then maybe bring our king to h2 to defend that. Let's try that. So bishop h4, we go king h2. This is where the king usually ends up in this opening. Might take us a bit to untangle there. I mean, we need to move our rook and then play knight f5. Okay, so we can't move our rook here, which means I probably have to move my rook here and then play knight to f5. Okay, so a4, probably don't have to worry about that. I mean, we should focus on the king side. We need to try and get something going on the king side. At the moment, we just have no counterplay. So, okay, let's try to get in knight f5. We really need to start fighting for these dark squares as well. We're just getting outplayed on the dark squares. Bishop takes. Okay, so takes here. I will take back with the pawn, I suppose. Which one? I think this one is better just because it opens up the bishop. And yeah, if we could have gotten in this move pawn to g5, it would have been very, very nice for us. Even still, we get this bishop to d5, which is quite nice. So we do have a very nice bind on the light squares now. It's just that his bishop is blocking these dark squares. But eventually we can probably get rid of the bishop, you know, play bishop g3. So in order to push these pawns, we need to get rid of this bishop. So in order to get rid of this bishop, we'll probably have to play bishop g3 at some point, trade off and start pushing these pawns up. And he's trying to block everything up with the move pawn to g5. Now, yeah, so with these pawns moves, you want to spend some time because en passant is of course the obvious move, and it opens up the king side. Opens up your bishop. If I don't take, then the position is pretty closed. I mean, it's going to be near impossible to get rid of this knight later on, and it almost looks like a fortress. So I think I should take it. The bishop can also come to h6. Yeah, so the bishop can come to h6, I'm pretty sure. Wait, do I have bishop takes e5 here? I think I do. So if I go bishop takes e5, pawn takes e5, I have queen h6, which is mate because the king can't go across to g8. And that looks pretty good. And this is mate. Okay, so back to this Vienna line where you play the move pawn to g3. So let me go through some of the theory here. So for example, usually black will play the move bishop to c5 in this type of position. And the way you develop your pieces is you put your knight here on e2 in order to free up this f pawn. And you're essentially going for some position, let's say castles, here, h3, let's say black plays something like this. The king will march to h2 usually to avoid any pins from this bishop and then free up your f pawn. And if you're allowed to push this f pawn to f4 and even f5, then that will give you a massive attack on the king side. For example, if your opponent allows you to push this pawn up to f5 and get this really nice pawn chain going, then you have a very nice attack here on the king side. And this is essentially the same plan in the King's Indian, so it's very similar opening ideas and structure here. And of course sometimes if they take, you can also take back with the pawn, and this is also a typical idea in the King's Indian, to take back, open up the g file, and now we have attacking ideas such as f5, d4, d5, and so on. So this is essentially what we're going for when we play this opening. There's also one more line after the move knight to f6, g3, d5, takes bishop g2, and we get this sort of position. But again, this position with the double pawns is not so bad, and generally white is doing quite well here as well. So this is a good opening to have, especially if you like playing the King's Indian from the black side. So in the game, castles, bishop to g4. Actually, in hindsight, I felt like maybe I should have played h3 first, just to prevent this position where the bishop goes to h5 and g6. Because even though we got an f4, it actually wasn't that easy to progress our position after that. So perhaps h3 might have been a better version. And if they do this, queen d7, we can always play king h2 and then play f4. So castles, bishop here, h3, and G4. We also can just avoid G4 for now. We could play maybe F4 straight away. This is fine as well. But G4 gets a free tempo, so I thought why not play it. And when the bishop goes back, went for the move pawn to F4. So it's saying D4 is best. I think the reason why it wants to play D4 here is I think it wants black to take, and then this way, since the F pawns aren't traded off, then we always have this threat over F4, F5. That makes a lot of sense actually. Why D4 is probably the better move. And then we can maybe play bishop E3 and use this square, because in the game, even though we got a nice position, it was very hard to break through. But nonetheless, this is still quite nice for white. Rook F2, it didn't like this move, so it wanted immediately to play the move pawn to G5, I think. So in hindsight, this makes sense because in the game, we sort of got binded down on these dark squares. The bishop sort of came out to these squares. But if we play G5 first, the knight is unable to capture because we have knight takes G6, which would open up a discovered attack on this knight, and we would just pick up a piece. Therefore, black would have to move this knight somewhere. But then you could play H4 to keep your attack going. You could also, it wants to take the bishop and then play H4. Something like this, which is also fine. Maybe bishop H3 and then swing the queen across the G2, H2. With a nice attacking position, but there's no bind on these dark squares that we really have to worry about. So in the game, B3, pawn to B4, so knight to E2. So yeah, I was particularly worried about this type of position where black plays the move bishop to G5 and then trades off pieces. Actually, it's saying it's a blunder. Why is this a blunder? So takes. So I thought here black would just trade off. Oh, actually, we totally missed H4. I just realized. Okay, so yeah, just H4 here would just pick up the bishop. So actually, there's no way for black to even play bishop to G5 in that position because of this tactic. But instead, maybe bishop H4 is okay for black. So yeah, it's saying bishop H4 is quite a nice move. But after knight E2, knight to G3, bishop here, king H2. So here I was trying to get this move knight to F5 in the whole time. Wait, did he just blunder? Or did I just miss a win here? I just completely missed knight takes E6. Wow, knight takes E6, and I could have just completely won the queen in this position. So okay, that's pretty bad actually. But here you could have just played knight takes E6, and that would have been game over. So yeah, so rook E2 is a serious mistake there. Pawn to A5. Knight to F5. We have knight takes F4, bishop takes, captures here. Here I thought the position was pretty nice for white, just because the bishop's coming to D5. But even still, it's not that easy to break this bind. Like, this dark square bind is very, very annoying. But okay, it's saying this is the best move, G5. So the mistake must have been later on, after pawn takes, yeah. So here, black should have just taken here with the knight. And it's a little bit worse, but it's probably still playable. But after this, it's completely lost, because the bishop takes E5 and queen H6. Okay, so we got a nice finish to the game, but we did miss a lot of tactics this game. So hopefully our next one will be a lot better than this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.